Today's 5 minutes of free advice could be summed up in one word: dare. But that's not 5 minutes. Or if you wanted two more words, speak up. I've noticed that whenever I am speaking about anything publicly, whether it's in a podcast or on a radio show or on a TV show or on my blog or on YouTube, there will be hundreds of haters come out of the woodwork and say things like, "Who asked you? Who cares what you think anyway? I hate you." And I wonder, why do these people get so outraged? Why would you track down somebody if you hate them so much? I mean, this isn't a homework assignment. This isn't your job. Move on with your little life. It's like Rob Zombie said: you have the right to free speech, and I have the right not to give a fuck about your speech. So move on. Why are these people so upset? And it occurred to me that I'm part of a group that a good number of people in the world think has no right to speak, and that is older women. No one cares what older women think, so you should shut up and be quiet. And how dare you have an opinion? Well, let me tell you something, Buttercup. Uh, I have every right in the world to have an opinion, and I do not intend to change. There's a really good book called Women's Ways of Knowing, where they talk about the different levels of knowledge that women come to, and they started out with various groups of women, and one of the populations they worked with were women who were in very bad circumstances, very, very low income, had suffered abuse and all kinds of things in their life. And they talked about voice, and they said these women had no voice. They were silent. When you asked their opinion, they really couldn't give you an opinion. They couldn't tell you what they thought about things. They had been put down so much of their life and told that they had no right to an opinion. There's another book in psychology called Reviving Ophelia, and there's a great term in there where she talks about how after 10 years old or so, girls are starting to be socialized into how they're supposed to be, and they lose that quality of speaking one's mind with all one's heart. Well, I don't think I've ever lost that quality, and I don't intend to. I don't intend for you or for anybody else. I'm sure you who are ever listening to this YouTube video are just absolutely wonderful. But in general, it's funny. I was having to go through things in my childhood recently, which I very, very, very seldom do for a lot of reasons. And I had to go through some stories with someone. And it was funny because I remembered one from probably my earliest memory. We were living in Pakistan before the war that split up West Pakistan and East Pakistan into Pakistan and Bangladesh. And I was about 4 years old, and the family that lived nearby had a son and a few daughters, and I had two brothers that were older than me. And their son told me to do something, go fetch him water or whatever. And I said, no, go do it yourself. So he picked up a stick and he hit me with it a few times. Now, it probably wasn't as traumatic as I remember because I was four, remember? But I went home crying, and my two brothers went over, and they were 6 and 7, and they took this kid outside and they thrashed him. And, it wasn't like a waterboarding incident. They were 6 and 7. The other kid was probably the same age, and, they probably each punched him a couple times, and that was it. So there's a big incident about it internationally because my dad worked at the Air Force Base, and his parents explained that in Pakistan that your sister was supposed to do what you said, and he was just kind of doing what was appropriate in their culture. And my dad explained, well, my brothers were just doing what was appropriate in our culture, which is that if somebody hits your sister, you pound him a little bit. So that was my first experience with speaking up. I was talking to my sister about this, and she said, all of the things that you've done, the two things that most stick out in my life. When I was 5 years old, my sister that is, she said we were out trick or treating, and at the end of the day at night, I had a whole bunch of candy, and some bigger kids, a bunch of them came and stole my candy and ran away. And you were just like, oh, hell no. And you chased after them and you got my candy back, and you were like my hero. And it's funny because I remember that too. Now, of course, I ran down the block, was out of sight of her, and I got, smacked a couple of times by those bigger kids taking the candy back, and it hurt. But I don't know. I just decided that I was getting it back, and that was it. And if I managed to happen to get punched in the face in the process, oh well. The other thing that she remembered, and I did remember it also, was when she was in middle school, in junior high school, for some reason, some other kid at the school decided they were going to fight her. And So they met up at the park, and I went with my sister. And for whatever reason, my sister is not as big into fighting as I am, right? So the adrenaline kicks in, and she manages to knock this girl down. So the other girl's brother, who was in 10th grade, jumps in, and he got to be a good foot taller than me. And so he's going to beat up my sister. So I jump in and throw him to the ground. So again, she said, and after that, nobody ever messed with me all through junior high and high school. But the other thing I remember about that my sister didn't was as they were walking away and we were walking away, the guy turned around and sucker punched me and it hurt. But those aren't the things my sister remembers. She remembers the part about me standing up for her. And the part I remember is that even if I thought I might get hurt, I did it anyway. So here's my word for you fuckers that want to say stuff about me. You know what? People have punched me in the face and slapped me and hit me with sticks, and I'm still speaking up. And I really encourage anyone that feels like they have something to say to do the same. And if other people don't think you have a right to be heard, that's their problem. That's not yours. They're probably not going to come over and hit you with sticks, so whatever. And that's tonight's 5 minutes of free advice brought to you by 7 Generation Games. Games that make you smarter. If you want to be smarter or show your gratitude, go on over to www.7generationgames.com and buy a game or donate one to a child or school.